The bargain. The town of Dry Creek lay under a sharp morning sun, the kind that made the dust rise early and hang heavy in the air. Wagons rattled down the single dirt street, and the clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoed from the far end of town. Horses snorted, hitching posts creaked, and the faint murmur of gossip traveled from porch to porch as townsfolk went about their lives. Nathan Harmon tied his horse outside the general store and stood a moment, adjusting the brim of his hat. At 36, he carried the look of a man who had worked too many years under the sky. His face was bronzed by sun, furrowed with lines that spoke of worry more than age. His hands were strong, scarred, the hands of a rancher. And his eyes, blue and sharp, had a sadness no one dared speak of. 2 years earlier, he had buried his wife. Consumption had taken her slowly, leaving him helpless to do anything but hold her hand as she faded. Now, her grave lay at the edge of the pasture, marked by a wooden cross he had built with his own hands. Since then, Nathan had raised 3 boys alone: Thomas, aged 7, Samuel, 5, and baby Jacob, just shy of a year. The older 2 managed chores and school well enough. But Jacob was fading. Without his mother's milk, he grew thinner by the week. Neighbors had tried to help, bringing cow's milk or broth, but it wasn't the same. At night, Nathan would pace the wooden floor, Jacob's tiny cries cutting through him, and he'd whisper desperate prayers into the darkness. He had tried everything except asking for the impossible, until this morning. Across the street, near the wagon depot, a woman stepped down from a rattling cart. She was tall, though her posture carried exhaustion. Her dress, patched and faded, spoke of hard years, and her bonnet's ribbons fluttered in the breeze. 2 small girls clung to her skirts, their cheeks hollow, their eyes watchful. "Caroline Blake," whispered a woman on the porch of the Mercantile. "Her husband was killed in the mines back east. Folks say her in-laws turned her out the very week they buried him." Nathan overheard, though he hadn't asked. He watched Caroline help her girls down from the wagon, her hands gentle but steady. There was strength in her movements, even in her weariness. She walked to the store, bartering quietly with Mr. Jensen, the shopkeeper, laying a single wool blanket on the counter. Nathan's chest tightened. A widow with 2 little girls, trying to trade the last of what she owned for flour. He turned away, clenched his fists, then forced himself to cross the street. Inside the store, the bell jingled as he pushed open the door. Caroline turned, startled. Up close, Nathan saw her clearer, brown hair tucked beneath her bonnet, lips pressed thin with worry, eyes the color of autumn leaves. She stepped slightly in front of her daughters. "You're Mrs. Blake?" Nathan asked, his voice rougher than he meant it to be. Her chin lifted a little. "Yes." "And you are?" "Nathan Harmon. Ranch out west." He hesitated, searching for words. "I heard of your loss." Caroline's eyes softened, but only for a heartbeat. She nodded politely. "Thank you." The girls clung to her. The eldest, perhaps 8 years old, studied Nathan with wary curiosity, while the younger buried her face against her mother's skirts. Nathan's throat tightened. He had rehearsed this moment in his mind, but now the words felt impossible. Still, desperation drove him forward. "I won't waste your time, ma'am," he said, his voice low. "I have 3 sons. The oldest 2 are healthy, but my youngest, he cries every night. He needs milk I can't give him. I've tried everything, but he's wasting away." Caroline blinked, unsure where he was leading. "That's very sad, Mr. Harmon. But I don't see what—" He cut her off, his jaw set. "My offer is plain. I'll be your husband if you breastfeed my sons." The shop fell silent, the words hanging heavy in the air. Even the old storekeeper froze, his hands stilling over the flour sack. Caroline's cheeks flamed. Her mouth parted, but no words came. She looked at him as though struck. That's a cruel thing to say to a woman," she whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan's chest ached at the hurt in her eyes. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It's not meant cruel. It's truth. I don't know how else to save my boy. And I don't want some stranger nurse in my home. I need a wife. My boys need a mother. You've got 2 daughters who need shelter. I'm offering mine." Caroline's lips pressed tight. Her hand smoothed her younger daughter's hair, as though shielding her from words too heavy for her ears. "You speak as though marriage is a transaction," she said bitterly. Nathan's gaze held steady. "Maybe it is. Maybe that's all I've got to offer right now. Respect, safety, food, family. I can't promise love, not yet. But I can promise none of you will ever go hungry, and no man will ever lay a hand on you in harm again." The words seemed to weigh on her. She glanced at her girls, then back at Nathan. "And what of affection? Of tenderness? You've lost your wife. You think binding yourself to another widow will ease that grief?" Nathan's voice cracked before he steadied it. "I don't know. I only know my baby won't last the winter without a mother's care. And I only know that when I look at you, I see a woman who's strong enough to fight for her children. That's the kind of mother my sons need." Tears brimmed in Caroline's eyes, though she blinked them back. She bent to her eldest daughter, whispering something. The girl shook her head, clinging tighter. Caroline straightened again, her face pale but resolute. "You don't know what you're asking of me," she murmured. Nathan's hand curled into a fist at his side. "I do. And I'll carry the weight of it if you'll let me." The silence stretched. The sound of wagons outside, the neigh of horses, the chatter of townsfolk drifted faintly into the store, but inside it was only the 2 of them. His desperate plea, her impossible choice. At last, Caroline exhaled a shuddering breath. She looked at her daughters, then back at him. Her voice, when it came, was scarcely louder than the whisper of wind. "Take me home." Nathan's heart gave a jolt, half relief, half fear. He hadn't expected her to agree. Not so soon, not so simply. But the steadiness in her eyes told him it was not surrender. It was courage. He nodded once. "Gather your things. We'll leave before sundown." As they stepped out of the store, the town's eyes followed them. Whispers spread, judgments murmured on porches. But Nathan didn't care. He had asked for the unthinkable, and she had said yes. For the first time in months, hope flickered in his chest. Not for himself, but for his sons. For Jacob. And perhaps, in some far corner of his heart, he didn't dare admit yet, for her too. A home forged in fire. The wagon rattled westward, carrying Caroline, her daughters, and the meager belongings she still owned. Nathan sat beside her, silent, the reins steady in his calloused hands. His sons waited at the ranch house. When they arrived, the children eyed each other with shy curiosity. Nathan's 3 boys staring at the 2 new girls, the girls clutching their mother's skirt as if they might vanish if they let go. Nathan introduced them briskly. "These are your new sisters. This is your new mother." The older boy, Thomas, squared his shoulders like a miniature version of Nathan. "Will she stay?" Nathan nodded. "For good." Caroline stepped forward, kneeling so her eyes met theirs. "If you'll have me," she said gently, "I'll be here every day. I'll cook, I'll sew, and I'll hold you when you're afraid. I'll be your mother if you'll let me." The baby in Nathan's arms whimpered, his cheeks hollow. Caroline reached for him instinctively. Her daughters gasped as she cradled the frail child, but Nathan's stern face softened. That night, with the fire glowing, Caroline sat rocking the baby against her breast. His cries quieted, his small body relaxing for the first time in weeks. Nathan stood across the room, watching the miracle he had begged for. He turned his head away when tears burned his eyes. Life on the ranch settled into a new rhythm. Caroline woke before dawn, baking bread while Nathan did chores. The older children helped with livestock, fetched water, and learned to share chores without complaint. Slowly, laughter returned to the Harmon home. But marriage without love was not simple. Nathan slept in the loft, leaving Caroline and the children in the bedrooms. They spoke politely, worked side by side, yet an invisible wall stood between them. One stormy night, after weeks of silence, Caroline found Nathan repairing a fence post by lantern light. She stood in the rain until he looked up. "You gave me a home," she said, "but you keep yourself locked away from me. Do you regret it?" Nathan wiped water from his brow. "Regret saving my baby? No. Regret binding you to me with words harsher than you deserved? Every day." Caroline stepped closer, her dress plastered by rain. "I don't regret it. Not one bit. You think respect is all you can offer, but these weeks I've seen more kindness from you than from anyone since my husband died. My girls call you Papa when they think I don't hear. And when I look at you, Nathan, I don't just see the man who bargained with me. I see the man who kept us alive." Nathan's rough hands trembled as he set down the hammer. He whispered, "Caroline." The storm roared, thunder shaking the barn, but the distance between them closed. He touched her hand, and she did not pull away. That night, for the first time, Nathan did not climb to the loft. Months passed. The ranch flourished, children growing strong under Caroline's care. The town whispered at first, about the strange marriage, about the blunt proposal, but whispers died when they saw the truth. The Harmon Ranch became a place of laughter, of Sunday dinners with neighbors, of children running free across the pastures. One evening, Caroline sat with Nathan on the porch, the sun setting behind the hills. The baby, now plump and rosy, gurgled in her arms. Her daughters chased fireflies with his boys. Nathan cleared his throat. "When I asked you to marry me, I gave you a bargain, not a vow of love. But tonight, I want to say what I should have said then. Caroline, I love you. More than I thought my heart could again." Caroline leaned against him, her eyes shining with peace. "And I love you, not because of what you offered, but because of the man you are. That day in town, when I said, 'Take me home,' I didn't know it yet. But you already were my home." Nathan wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close as the children's laughter rose in the twilight. For the first time since his wife's death, the ache inside him eased. He was no longer just a widower rancher. He was a husband again, a father to 5, a man with a family whole. And together, they faced a future no storm could tear apart.